Car guys of YouTube, this is my 2003 Jaguar XJ8 Sport with a 5.3 LS engine in it and a 76mm Turbonetics Turbo. This car started, just a little backstory to it, about 2010 or 2011 I was working at a place and I started noticing these cars started coming up for a decent amount. Like you'd see them for anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 with all sorts of miscellaneous damage on them. They had the Nicosil liners in them, and the liners would flake out, and the motor would basically be junk in them, and people would get rid of them just as a body, as a rolling chassis type thing. So I was considering it for a while, and the idea kind of fell to the wayside for a while until about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, this car popped up online, and it was at a dealership local to me, and they were asking $700 for the car. The car had a locked up motor in it, and when I went and looked at it, the car was in really nice shape at the time. There wasn't any rust or dings or dents on it or anything like that. It has sustained some damage since then from kicking around my place for like the last 2 years. About a year ago, I decided to get pretty serious with it and start the project, and I started accumulating parts and started doing research on it. I ended up talking to a guy named Andrew over at Jaguar Specialties. If you guys are interested in doing one of these swaps, this isn't a paid program or paid advertisement plug or anything like that, but the guy has a pretty comprehensive drop-in kit for this, where you can drop it in, all the gauges work, the air conditioning will work, the power steering variable adjustment will work, all your staples of the car's performance out of the gate will work, just fine with it. And it comes with a bunch of adapter fittings to make things line up, and it comes with engine mounts, transmission mount, an actual CAN bus module that goes from the CAN bus to the SCP network on the Jaguar. It's pretty nice. It didn't work out for me in that regard. I talked to him. He's a super nice guy, and I honestly wish I could have just bought the kit because it would have made things way easier for me. But with all the turbo piping that was gonna have to be fabricated for this, I just decided to be easier on me to just go ahead and build motor mounts myself and just do the setup of everything around the turbo kit, basically, so that I wasn't building it to his kit. I was building it to my standards, or like I said, and not that there's anything wrong with his kit. I needed the engine to sit back a little further. I ended up having to drill holes through the K frame and then move the motor mounts back on the K frame, and then make custom brackets that actually went to the engine itself. Then I ended up having to make a dog leg bracket, like a torque strut, basically. So there was a bit of work to it. Long story short, I didn't end up using the kit. Like I said, I wish I would have, or I wish I could have. The main thing's way easier on me, but I think it's like a $1,800 kit or something like that. It's really not that bad in the grand scheme of things if you're doing one of these, but I know there's a lot of interest in it. I've had people ask me about the car at car shows, and I've had people, a lot of my friends that are out of state and stuff ask me how it's going. And so I decided, I'm just going to make a YouTube video on it. And, if there's other guys out there that are doing the LS swaps and are just interested in seeing how I did it, how I brought in my turbo piping, etc., I just figured I'd make a small video on it and share all my pictures. So at the end of this video, I'm actually going to link all the pictures. Just continue the video, and then it'll show all the pictures at the end. I'll have all the build pictures, and then you'll be able to see what specifically I had to do to make it all work. Yeah, I have a 4L ADE for it that I just got done rebuilding. It's got a fresh kit in it with an HD2 setup. It has the 34 element sprag. It has high energy clutches in it. It's pretty well built out, and I got a Summit ProLS converter for it, the 2800 stall converter, lockup converter. So that's all ready to go in. It's completely assembled and ready. The rear axle I did a video on already, and that is also done and ready to go. It's an updated rear axle. This thing has an 8-inch ring gear in its stock, and it's not desirable at all. So I did a video that kind of documented what it takes to put an 8.9-inch ring gear in this with a powerlok, center section that actually locks up for the carrier. And then I put a 1350, U-joint yoke on it so that I'll be able to accept the 1350, which will give me a little more strength when I build out the drive shaft. And there's the ADE, obviously. So yeah, that's the car in a nutshell. And it's been, it's been a fun project, but it's been challenging at the same time. There's been a lot of fitment issues and a lot of things that came up, like any project where I wasn't expecting it. So I've had to overcome some of that. The engine does have quite a few performance modifications beside the turbo. It has a Summit 8715 cam in it, which is like the perfect match for that ProLS converter. Well, it's one of the perfect matches. Summit makes several cams and converters that work together, but it has new piston rings in it, new bearings. The 706 heads have been reworked, and you'll be able to see that in the pictures. It's got a water-to-air intercooler setup in it, which is also shown in the pictures. It has a 2006 Corvette water pump on it, just for fitment. And then I ended up making all the brackets, all the front accessory brackets for this, the alternator, power steering, AC, the whole 9 yards. So they're custom, but the 2006 normally has the little bumps on the water pump right where between the alternator there, and it's for the tensioner. Well, I needed the room, so I ended up just sawing those off and then sanding it, so it's the same shape as the water pump, and just putting a little paint on it to cover it up. But so now the alternator fits nice and low. It is a little bit close to the exhaust system, but a lot of that is actually header wrap, because I think I did like, I don't know, 2 or 3 layers right there. So there's every bit of probably 3/8 of an inch of actual header wrap itself. So it's a little bit tight in areas, but it's not so bad that I'm worried about it. I've done far worse with other vehicles before in the past. This is I've built quite a few turbo cars for guys, and actually some of them might comment on this video. So anyway, that's I'm not really that concerned about the heat generation right now. I mean, I guess if it becomes a problem, I'll rethink it. But besides that, it's got snake heated 1,500 pounds on it, or 1,500 cc injectors, which I think are 142 pounds if I'm not mistaken. It has Taylor high voltage or high heat ignition wires on it. Also another Summit purchase, not by any means a plug for Summit, but I did end up getting quite a few things from them. It has a 3-bar map sensor in it. I did the IET mod, so I don't have a master flow anymore, but I do have the IET. I've got a P59 PCM for it. And the wiring, I got a stock harness, and you'll see some of that in the pictures too. And I ended up gutting the harness and just, soldering and heat shrinking things and making them the right size and making it so it cleaned up nice. However, obviously over here, there is a bird's nest of wiring, and it is mostly figured out. It's not, I'm getting pretty close now to wrapping it up. I got a lot of the power and ground stuff for the GM side worked out. This stuff down here is all the stock Jaguar ins and outs, basically, that I had to cut away from the PCM. The blue wire itself is the engine management relay, and this thing's kind of weird. The ignition on this thing is all grounds. So when you turn it, I'm used to like Ford and GM where everything's power from the ignition, but the feeds from this are all grounded. So when you turn the ignition switch to on, it actually grounds a bunch of things to turn things on, and then the relays fire power out to everything. So you have to, when you cut your PCM out of these things, you have to make sure you reground this relay to the ignition switch so that it turns on your engine management relay, and then it ends up powering up a whole bunch of things. Then you can use that power and some of the existing relays to power different things. So I'm actually using the existing oxygen sensor power relay to power the oxygen sensors on this, on the GM side of things. So it all depends on how you want to do it. A lot of guys just go to a 3-wire system where they just have full-time power on most of this stuff, and then they have switch power to the PCM inputs, and that's all they do. So I guess it's all depending on what you're looking to do with it. I'm looking for as much reliability as possible and as much of it to be stock as possible. So I'm tying a lot of these circuits back into the Jaguar side of things, so it's a little bit of an uphill battle there, just because it takes more time to do it that way. But I figure when it's all said and done, it'll be a little bit cleaner. And then if I need to, if something does happen, I need to do a little bit of diagnostics on it, I'll be able to get in there and kind of pick the system apart a little bit, instead of having 10,000 wires that go to a single fuse block, like an aftermarket fuse block, where I got to chase down wires and double check things. I'll be able to just go after the system that's setting the code, and just kind of a more OEM type setup on it for doing diagnostics. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm slowly making progress on it. When I have time, I do unfortunately have an odd work schedule, so they can call me in at just about any time, and I have to go when they call me, and then so it's not as cut and dry as other people's work schedules, I guess. But when I do get time to work on it, though, I have been hammering away on some of the fabrication issues and trying to get some of the goofball stuff. Like, I still got to work out where the power steering reservoir is going. I have to work out where the coolant reservoir is going to go. I have to reconnect the exhaust system, because down below I do have a loud valve in this car with a 3.5-inch dump, and then the other side's a 3-inch. So I have to connect the 3-inch to a V-band that heads back to the rest of the system. Then I'm going through the stock Jaguar exhaust system on it, actually, except for when the loud valve opens up. Then it'll be a 3.5-inch dump, and should be good and noisy. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm gonna run 15 pounds of boost on it, and whatever it makes, it makes. I will dyno it when it's all, you know, put back together and running. I'll take it out and I'll see what it'll do. But 15 pounds is kind of, for whatever reason, I just got my mind set on that. I've had a couple other turbo cars in the past, and I've never really pushed them that hard. And with these, because it's an 05 motor, it's got the full floating pistons in it and decent rods in it, and they handle a little more abuse with without coming apart. So I will be putting a little more boost in it than I normally would on other cars. Plus, I think with this being a 4-door, I think the car is 41 or 4,200 pounds stock, and with that 480 and the iron block, I might be adding a little bit to that. But it's going to be a fairly heavy car, and 15 pounds, it's, if it makes 600 wheel horse, let's say, or 600 horsepower to the wheels rather, I'd be totally happy with that. I mean, on a reasonably heavy car, I don't think it's going to be too crazy. I don't think it's going to want to get away from me real bad, with it being the wheelbase being long and the fact that I'll have lots of weight transfer on the back tires and stuff. I mean, who knows? I mean, it might be totally insane to drive, but I've driven high horsepower cars before, and like much higher than this even, and I don't normally like anything that crosses like the 700 horsepower and 3,000 pound mark, just because that's when it starts to get super sketchy, because that's when you'll start losing control of the car at like 70 miles an hour and stuff. But I think this one will be reasonably tame. It's got kind of like a street cam in it. That Summit Stage 1 turbo cam is pretty easy going, so I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to scream so bad that it's just going to blow the tires off and make it an absolute nightmare to drive. But and that's what I'm trying to avoid too. I'm not trying to make this thing into a race car. It's not a race car. It's a 4-door Jaguar. So it's made to be, the end goal is for me to be able to get in the thing, send my wife to go get groceries in the thing, and nobody know the difference. I don't want it to be out there making a bunch of noise, and I don't want it to draw a bunch of attention, so I'm getting in trouble with the police constantly. But yeah, I'm kind of getting onto a ramble here, but that's where I'm at right now. I do have a slight advantage of having lots of wiring diagrams. So if anybody has any questions about things, I did pull a whole bunch of wiring diagrams and print them out. I also have the service manual, electronic service manual for this, which is pretty widely available online. You can find it if you Google it. And it also has some great wiring stuff in it. And then I've already kind of solved some of the issues with, like I have air conditioning on the car, and I bent up pipes, and I ended up having to weld pieces together. I don't know how well you can see that, but I had to make all the pipe, well, not all the pipes, I shouldn't say that, but I had to make the suction line from the evaporator to the compressor, because it didn't fit. The rest of the lines I was able to tweak out a little bit and get them to fit, but going back to the electrical, I did already sort all that out, and I know how to make the AC work now. I know how to make the stock pressure switch work with the GM side of things, so I will be able to utilize the GM computer to run the fans when the AC's on. There's a little bit of programming involved with that, because you actually have to put in a calibration out of like a early Camaro or a Firebird, like the 01, 02, basically, when they had electric fans, and then you'll have those outputs. I think it's like 33 and 45 if I'm not mistaken, or 33 and 42 maybe, but that's the high side, low side fan control. And it's funny because the Jaguar is wired the exact same way as far as the relay goes. It's a 3 relay system. One contact pulls 2 relays, and it just basically takes it from series to parallel to switch the fan speed. So it's being a 2-fan system. So anyway, a lot of that I have figured out already. So if you guys are doing one and you're kind of stumped or frustrated or whatever, or if you decide down the road you want to do one, I might be able to help out with some of that. And I at some point I might even make a website if guys are really interested in it. And just with like I've kept a bunch of cheat sheets and a bunch of notes and things of of some of the things that I've had to overcome with the wiring system. So that may happen. And I mentioned Jaguar Specialties earlier. I might actually still try to get a hold of him and get a CAN bus module at some point, just because I want to run digital gauges, so I want a fully digital dashboard for it. So if I do that, there's not going to be much room, or not going to be a need for the CAN bus module, because I can use everything on the GM side to do what I want it to do. But there is something kind of nice about having the stock look inside the car as far as stock gauges and whatnot. So I'm still kind of on the fence about that. And right now, he doesn't sell that CAN bus module separate from the kit. So I mean, I guess that'll be a large part of it if he at some point starts selling that individually, and it's not an arm and a leg. Then yeah, I might pick one out. But otherwise, I probably will just spend the money I was going to spend on that, on making the digital gauge set. You basically buy a Windows-based computer, you download a program, and you throw a small, like HD monitor where the gauge set used to be, and you can program it to look like however you want. So it's kind of a neat deal. But anyway, yeah, if you guys have something going on, a project, whatever, drop make a video and show us what's going on or whatever. I mean, the car community is pretty sweet, and it's neat to see what other people are building. And then leave a link in the description. I'll definitely check it out. And if you guys have questions, or you guys have ideas for me on this thing, or anything you want me to do, or see what I've done, or etc., or even ideas of just maybe see something that I'm missing here, let me know. And I'll be glad to take anybody's advice on stuff. And there's a whole bunch of guys out there that are way better at this kind of stuff than I am, so it'd be neat to see what you guys come up with. So yeah, that's the car in a nutshell. And I'll make further videos if I get any interest in it. So there's pictures coming right now.